Social anxiety is something that I wanted to talk about because I think this is something that many of us struggle with varying degrees of anxiety in social situations, whether that be because of a social deficit of some sort or just aspects of our personality that might not be priming us necessarily for typical success in social settings. So I wanted to just talk about this and also, although I'm not a mental health professional, I have some practical tips that I've written down, things that I do myself to help ease the discomfort and the challenge of engaging in these social situations. Also, remember that even feelings of fear have a purpose. They're designed to help us survive potentially threatening situations that we might encounter. The problem obviously arises when we have these anxious feelings or negative emotions and they impede or prevent us from functioning in a healthy way, which includes our social interactions. Because we are social creatures after all. We all need each other. Humans need each other. So isolation is not the answer. And I just want to share some personal tips that I have used, that I do use to overcome it's not a fear of social situations, but my hesitation and reluctance to engage in social interactions. So this, like anything else, is something you can practice like a muscle, and you can get stronger and less fearful. So let's take a look at these tips and see if they can help in any way. So the first tip is to breathe. Where the breath goes, the mind goes. So being in tune with your physical body is the first step, I believe, in mitigating that fear and that nervousness. Breathing will help you control your anxiety in real time, not just in social situations, but in any time you feel that, it will produce an immediate calming effect. The second tip I have for managing social anxiety is to shift your focus off of yourself and on to others. So we are all, by our very nature of being human, we are narcissistic animals, meaning that we are self-interested, first of all. And that's not a bad thing. It's actually helpful if we can all acknowledge this as a quality of being human. And it's not something to be ashamed about or to point fingers at someone else for being narcissistic. Narcissism, actually, if you examine narcissism, it plays a very important role in our development. I'm not speaking about pathological narcissism, by the way, not narcissistic personality disorder. I'm speaking about having a narcissistic trait, which is what we all share as human beings, as human animals. We are all narcissistic. But anxiety has a way of grabbing your attention and pulling it inward and making your thoughts of self-criticism and self-consciousness amplified to an unreasonable degree. And that's where the racing heartbeat and the shallow breath and the sweating, that's where it becomes more prominent and noticeable, because we have an amplified sense of ourselves, really. And so by turning our attention outward instead of focusing on the spotlight, so to speak, being on us, we have this imaginary spotlight on us. By shifting the focus to other people, it helps tremendously. It brings the attention off of oneself and onto other people. And so it's a good reminder that it's not always about us, of course. The world doesn't revolve around us. There's that old saying, there's that popular saying of when you're on the beach and you are feeling self-conscious of being in a bathing suit, and you think that everyone is staring at you and looking at your body and picking it apart. But the fact of the matter is nobody is doing that, because everybody else is consumed with thoughts of their own body and their own self. So it's this imaginary spotlight on ourselves, that extreme focus inward that is causing the extreme anxiety and self-consciousness. So by shifting the focus out, it helps tremendously. So that's another tip, is pay attention to others, your surroundings, and remember that everyone is preoccupied with their own insecurities. So you are certainly not the center of the universe, nor are your insecurities. So not to worry, everyone's wrapped up in themselves, because we are all these narcissistic animals. So that's why we do well when we socialize, because it takes the attention off of us, frankly. So that's the second tip. The third tip is to examine your thoughts and acknowledge them as just that, thoughts. And remember that they are merely thoughts, and thinking is not reality. So thoughts are not based in objective reality. They're an imagined concept that we have running through our minds, this narrative, whether it's about the future, future imagined scenarios that don't exist, or past memories that also don't exist in the present. They are all stories. So just remember that the narration in your mind, it's a story. And if you can acknowledge your thoughts, including your fearful thoughts, as just thoughts without attaching to them or identifying with them, that's the key that's the key to life, if you want to know the secret. But that's the key to certainly easing your anxiety, because those catastrophizing thoughts are what make us paralyzed in the moment and unable to act or unable to engage in a functional way. So, for example, out loud, you can just say to yourself, I'm experiencing such and such thought. And you can just acknowledge that thought and just imagine yourself putting it on a bookshelf and keeping it there, and not hiding it away or suppressing it, but just putting it aside, just as you would think about a dog right now, because I mentioned a dog, and now you're probably thinking about a dog right now. But just as easily, you can think about a book or a suitcase or a staircase, anything. So these are just thoughts. They are mere thoughts, and you can shelve them, and you don't have to entertain them or engage in them, or certainly attach or identify with them. Your thoughts don't have any power over you unless you let them. Place a little gap between yourself and your thoughts, and recognize you as the haver of the thoughts. You are the one who possesses the thought, and you are observing yourself thinking that thought, but you are not that thought, okay? So just remember that. And that really is the key to so much success, actually, if you can grasp that and just not get entangled with your mind. That's a great thing to practice generally. So just let it be there, and you don't have to resist it or reject it as such, but especially with negative thoughts, acknowledge their presence, and you can even say it out loud if it helps. You can talk to yourself and say, okay, I'm having this thought right now. How interesting. Or how upsetting that I'm having this thought. How maladaptive that I'm having this thought right now. You can just say objective reality as it is, and that's extremely helpful, because you can release it by saying it out loud, by verbalizing it and accepting its presence, but you don't have to attach yourself to it or give it any meaning, because many times there's no meaningful, it's not a meaningful concept. It's just a maladaptive loop. And I also want to say that thinking, like anything else, thinking is a habit. And as we know, habits can be changed. So you can work on this if you recognize in yourself that you are an overthinker, or you have that so-called paralysis by analysis syndrome. You can work on that. It's a habit just like anything else. So if you are a habitually negative thinker or a ruminator, you can work on this, but you must first be aware and willing to change, of course. The fourth tip I have is to share how you feel. So you can make a video and share how you feel. You can talk to a trusted loved one, a family member, or a therapist, a counselor, a mentor. But just feeling anxious is challenging enough. We all know this. We've all felt anxious, and it's a terrible feeling. And especially if it is gripping you so, it's a really hard thing to get unstuck from. So just sharing with someone and confiding in them that right now I'm feeling anxious, or I'm feeling fearful, or I'm feeling too nervous to go out. By hiding it, it's only going to make it worse. So the very least you can do is to not suppress it. Usually suppression produces more of what is being suppressed. So just sharing your feelings and opening up and being vulnerable with someone that you trust, it's going to help tremendously, because number one, it's going to connect you to another human being. So in some ways, that's a form of socializing right there. So you're kind of killing two birds with one stone in doing this, which is great. But this will take away the shame or the guilt that you might feel from feeling anxious and maybe not engaging in social situations. You can talk to these trusted people like your friends and your family, or a counselor or a therapist or a mentor, and open up about your mental health struggles. And oftentimes you will find that not only is the recipient going to be, they're going to receive you with compassion and care, but oftentimes they will share their own insecurities or their own fear with you. So because the truth is that we all struggle, I promise. The most successful people in the world, they struggle too. Everybody struggles. And it's a common thread that it's woven into being human, the human condition. So just because someone appears to be all put together and have their stuff together, it's things are not always what they appear to be. So we never know what people are going through behind the scenes, which is it's a good reminder to always be kind, because everybody's fighting a battle, as the saying goes, and you never know what someone is going through. So just a reminder that kindness doesn't cost anything. So just be kind to everyone, and that kindness will come back to you. You know, as the Stoics say, the little things are not small. So take small but deliberate, actionable steps towards the direction in which you want to be eventually. So in other words, avoiding social situations because you feel way too anxious to engage, that will only make the anxiety about socializing greater. It will amplify it. It will magnify it, and it will make you more anxious in the future, and it will just, it will ferment. So this is, avoidance is a short-term solution that prevents you from growing and learning. So it's not going to serve you. It's not going to serve others by holding yourself back and not sharing yourself with others. You won't be able to grow, and you also won't learn meaningful and helpful, healthy coping mechanisms. You will fall back on the maladaptive coping skills. So if interacting with new people, for instance, in unfamiliar settings is way too uncomfortable, try instead going to a new place with a friend. So you're just choosing one novelty. So you're not going to a new place with a stranger. In other words, you're going to a new place with a familiar person. So it could be a friend or a family member, and you can actually explain to them what you want to do, and say to them, I'd like to try and do this with you. Would you be willing to help me do this? I want to practice, going to this location, let's say the library. I want to practice going to the library, but not by myself. Would you come with me so that we could make this an outing, an outing with a friend? I can make this an outing with a friend instead of something I usually do by myself, something like that. That's one thing you can try doing. And another thing you can try doing is to give a compliment to a stranger in public. So the next time you're at a grocery store or any public place, you can approach a stranger and just give them a compliment. And that can be a way of practicing. Even if you are extremely anxious, you can try one of these tips. And certainly it's about taking conscious, deliberate steps towards the direction of where you want to go rather than remaining stuck. And this is something, frankly, that I continue to work on. It's nothing to be ashamed of, and I think it's something you can practice. So I wish you the best of luck with this, and I wish me the best of luck with this, because it's an ongoing work in progress. Thank you for spending some time with me today.